Everyone, welcome to the September 9th meeting of the Arlington Electoral Board. I believe this is our first in-person meeting since last February, March, so it's been quite a while. Thank you for joining us tonight. It should be a relatively quick meeting, but we want to go through some items particularly related to early voting and ranked choice voting. So I will kick off the meeting by announcing that the meeting is being recorded. Obviously, many people have joined us virtually. Thank you for doing that. We are meeting in person, as you may recall from our last meeting, because the governor's emergency order expired on July 1st, and with that, the ability to meet entirely virtually expired as well. So we're here in person, and we'll be doing so for the future. All right, so the first thing we want to take care of today is to approve the meeting minutes from June 30th, 2021, our most recent meeting. So I have moved that we approve the June 30th, 2021 Electoral Board meeting minutes.
Second.
All right.
So moved.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Moving on. Thank you. And just a reminder for everyone online, we have this on our website. You can review the minutes there as well. All right. So moving on to our first substantive agenda item, it is a reminder about early voting and to give you some updates about early voting. Most of you know that early voting starts a week from tomorrow, September 17th. No, 19th. Sorry.
17th.
No, 17th. Right.
Yeah.
17th.
9/17.
And we will begin 45 days of early voting at that point. But I want to kick it over to Gresham to give some updates on updates and reminders on early voting for this year.
Yep. So early voting this year, as some of you will remember, we were in the building next door for early voting last year. We are moving back to 2100 Clarendon Boulevard for early voting this year. And we will be voting in the meeting rooms on the first floor, Cherry and Dogwood. So the lobby will be being renovated throughout the entire early voting period. There will be 2 entrances open to the lobby at all times. And we will have signs in the lobby to direct voters as best as possible to get into the lobby safely. And we have been assured that there will be minimal impacts to voters. I just wanted to make everyone aware of this. This is part of an ongoing renovation that this building has been undergoing for 2 years at this point. So we're in the final phase of renovation. Any questions about that? But we'll do our best to make sure that the entrance that we need voters to use is marked on the exterior of the building with a sign provided from the landlord, JBG Smith.
You know how long the renovation will take?
The renovation is occurring in 3 phases downstairs and over the next 18 months. Yes, yeah. So it will be a long renovation for us. But I will say they renovated the county manager and county board suite last year. And we were here the entire time. And in terms of construction noise and disruption to our operations, it was very minimal. You almost didn't know they were here. So I'm optimistic that we'll have the same, it'll happen the same way for the lobby.
Just curious, thank you.
Yeah, it'll be a long renovation period.
And will that be, if the net result will be the same number of conference rooms, or is there any change in the?
There will be a change in the number of conference rooms. And this next phase, they're actually renovating the first, second, and third floor. So they will be adding, there's a whole host of changes, which I will discuss that I can discuss. But yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So.
Will we have signs outside or inside directing people to where to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll make sure our signage is, but it might change from week to week as they're moving the construction around. So in terms of that, starting on October 23rd, which is a Saturday, we will open up 2 additional early voting locations at Walter Reed Community Center and Madison Community Center. Those will be open Saturday from 9 to 5. We'll be open one Sunday from 11 to 3. And then we'll be opening them Tuesday through Thursday from 2 to 7 p.m. at those satellites. And then, let's see. So we are open only the one Sunday. We are not open the Sunday directly before the election because by code, any early voting needs to be completed by 5 p.m. the Saturday before the election. So that's not an option allowed to us in code.
So it's Sunday, October 24th.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And National Early Voting Day is October 23rd this year, and that coincides nicely with the expansion to the additional sites. So.
And the early voting sites, satellite sites will be at Walter Reed and Madison.
Yes. And we do anticipate that the Walter Reed vaccination clinic will still be ongoing in October. And they will be administering booster shots at that point. So there might be some, just to make people aware, situationally aware. Their hours they don't usually go till 7 p.m. at night, but we'll be working with them to make sure it's as smooth a process as possible. Okay.
My observation was during the last time we were there that it worked out just fine. We were both in progress.
Yeah. So, yep, it was able because we are able to use some of the same resources. So, yeah.
Right. And all the information on the early voting and the Dropbox locations and everything is up on the website.
Yes. No, it's been up on the website for.
My observation also was there's enough parking.
Yeah.
And from easily in and out.
Yeah.
Both,
Yeah.
both groups.
So, and then the next thing we wanted to discuss was candidate signs. So we've had a couple, as you've been driving around Arlington, you've noticed some candidate signs popping up. And if you're familiar with Arlington's zoning ordinance, you will realize that it does limit candidate signs to 30 days before the election. We received a ruling from our zoning office earlier this year that they count the first day of early voting as the election period. So that means candidate signs can go up 30 days prior to the first day of early voting, which is next week. So if you are seeing candidate signs, however you might personally feel about them, we're happy to send your comments to the zoning office, but they are in compliance with the zoning ordinance as it is interpreted at this point in time. So.
The only thing I would add to that is, the reason this is governed by the zoning ordinance is because Arlington owns and operates its roads, unlike most counties. In other counties, VDOT sets the rules. In Arlington, the zoning ordinance.
Okay. I did not know that. So.
Yeah, and some roads are exempted.
Yeah.
Some roads are VDOT
Yeah.
operated.
Yeah, I know the state-owned roads are.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's a good question, Marcia. So one of the questions we've had two questions come in on chat. And the first one is, they wanted the name of the conference rooms that early voting will take place. And what we say, it's the first floor of 2100 Clarendon Boulevard, and it's rooms Cherry and Dogwood. But the room names are less significant. We just need to get people into 2100 Clarendon Boulevard, and then they should see the big vote sign. And then so we've had requests for sample ballots, and so as some of you might be aware, we have 4 ballot styles for this election because we have 4 different House districts. And so we put in the past we put a combined sample ballot on the website, and we've distributed those to parks and library facilities. We do not have a combined sample ballot ready at this time, and I do not have an ETA on when that combined sample ballot will be ready. We did have something in the voting guide that the electoral board will be reviewing today and providing feedback on. So, I'm sorry, Marcia, I don't have an answer to your question.
Any other questions from the electoral board about early voting updates?
I think the explanation on the signs, I've called when that was controversial, and the county board took it up years ago, and it like rendition and interpretation.
Yeah.
All right, well, I look forward to having early voting kick off in 8 days. Here we go again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Look forward to it. All right, Kim, anything?
Yeah, good.
All right, moving on to the election officer updates.
For that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric to provide a brief update on where we are with election officer appointments and assignments for the upcoming election.
So we're going through right now making election officer assignments. We estimate needing about 440 officers across our precincts for this election. That essentially means about 7 to 8 election officers at most locations, with a few of our larger locations needing 9 or 10 election officers to check voters in, distribute ballots, assist with curbside voting, all the various duties that they have to do. We did have, we continue to have an extraordinary number of individuals interested in working the elections. We have 1,140 individuals that we're working through the list of to get into those 440 slots, and we'll usually overfill them to the tune of 550 or 600 people because we tend to have people that drop out, or maybe they were available several months ago, but since there's been that make them unavailable. So those assignments are going to be going out the week of September 20th, probably early that week, and training will start on October 5th and move forward from there. So that is the timeline. At this point, we're thinking that training will be, we were hopeful a couple months ago that training would be in person, at least for some of the classes, but given where we are right now, nationally and in Virginia, we think it's likely that we'll have our training be entirely online. We'll, continue to evaluate that week by week. We would especially love to have some in-person training for new officers and for the chiefs, but COVID might not allow that both because of the risk to, especially staff going out to these locations and being in rooms with that back to the office. That poses a significant risk. Also, there are not as many rooms available in the county as we would normally have. So we continue to not have, libraries and other locations that we would often use available to us. So at this point, it's likely that we'll be doing our training entirely online. Thankfully, that's worked out very well, and the election officers, that we've surveyed on that favor that format. It's actually a good time saver for us internally as well. But hopefully before too much longer, we can get back into some in-person classes, because that hands-on is nice for the people. So that's where we're at. We have an overwhelming interest, and it's just going to be sorting through and trying to get some of our regular officers that are there for us every election in the mix, and also make sure to include some, new people in the process as well. So continuing to try to balance those things. That's where we're at this point.
Are there any questions?
Just a quick question, kind of covered it earlier, but Eric, for the try to gain some parity between Republican and Democratically identified election officers.
Yeah.
Give us a little insight about how you'll be trying to do that.
Well, we officers represent themselves as whether they want to represent the Democratic Party, Republican Party, independent, capable of representing both parties. So when we go through the list, we want to make sure we have representation from both parties that have those polling places. I've looked through the list. I would say we have a couple locations where we have a little bit of a challenge, and we might have to work to, Republican representation tends to be smaller. So there's a few locations where we might have to move people around a little bit to make sure that we've got representation in all of them. But I think we're in good shape. We have, multiple people willing to represent either party, both parties, or independents. Because I would say typically, 25 to 30-ish people at most precincts is what we have available for only those 7 or 8 slots. So it makes it pretty easy to make sure that we have representation of both parties. It's a lot easier than it's been in the past in both recruitment and party representation. Yeah.
Just one quick question for Eric and Gretchen. I know the county enacted a COVID policy, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we obviously operate somewhat independently from the county manager. So I was wondering if we have any thoughts on whether we have any sort of COVID policy for election officers. Do we have any thoughts? Because they're again not employees.
So we'll be operating under the same, at this point in time, we're operating under the same COVID protocols that we had in place of all of last year, which is requiring a mask of our employees when they're within 6 feet of somebody, regardless of vaccination status. Obviously, these don't apply to voters, but for our workers, we do ask them to comply with the policies put forward for the county manager. The one that came through is the vaccine policy, and we will be requiring all election officers working this election to be vaccinated, and if they are not vaccinated, we will ask them to get a test within 72 hours of working with the public, whether they're at an early voting site or an election day site, in order to remain as consistent as possible with the county manager's policy.
I think that sounds great. We should have a very safe environment for voters and for our election officers as well, so.
Yeah.
Tim, anything? Well, again, thanks, Eric. It's always great to hear that we have a strong pool to recruit from and assign from, and I think we'll get there, and it should be another good year of election.
It's an unusual place to be in.
It really is.
Normally you don't have twice the number of people asking to work than you have slots available. But this is caused from, we had such a surge of applicants last year that we still have a lot of people interested in the process, which is great.
Yeah.
We love it. We absolutely love it.
That is great, especially with calling Fairfax County and Montgomery County have had shortages.
Yeah.
And then scrambling on training, and so as usual, it's better than Arlington.
Yeah.
I received some comments at the last couple of Republican committee meetings, in reference to the question about balance, question about being able to sign up. And so I encourage them to go online and do it, with the understanding that there are assignments that are in progress. And if there's an opportunity for them to serve this time, fine. But if not, they could certainly be considered and kept in mind for the future. We have an election every year.
Yeah, and we do, and if the part we do coordinate with, or we do get list of party chairs of nominees of election officers. So if the party chairs have a list of individuals that are interested in working the elections to represent their party, we always consider those individuals.
Yeah, thank you.
Still possible to apply to be an election officer?
I think the application is closed. Is the application open right now?
We're taking applications. We've been getting maybe one a day roughly. It's not been like the 100 a day we had last year.
Yeah.
We're getting one a day. So it just depends on location. There are a few locations where we don't have a ton of officers, but I'd say 85, 90% of them we've got more than enough.
Yeah.
But people should go ahead and apply. We try to get them. We've been trying to get the message across the officers that we're all part of a group here, and that you might not be able to work every election, but that we're going to kind of continue to rotate people through as much as we can to give people an opportunity to be part of it. So it's a unique product. After 11 years working with election officers, the last year has been a very unique circumstance, given this. Usually we are recruiting up until a week or two before and trying to make sure we've got enough people, and this is a little bit of the opposite problem. So it's a nice problem to have. Good that the community has been so responsive to this.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks again, Eric. I think we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is an update on the redistricting and re-precincting timeline. I know we received data from, or the state received census data, 3-4 weeks ago maybe, and the redistricting commission is going through the process of putting together potential maps. But beyond that, I defer to Gretchen on timeline and what it means for us.
Yeah, so so we do have the redistricting commission in Virginia now, and they have 60 days from receiving the data to have a draft of district lines to the General Assembly for them to vote on. So what that means in terms of timeline is we will not have new districts for this election. We will still be operating under the old House districts, or voting under the old House districts here in Virginia. We do anticipate the new lines coming down to us in November or December, depending on kind of where the General Assembly goes in that process. Once Arlington County receives the new district lines, there are some requirements that we can't have a precinct split between two districts. So that's going to trigger a process here in Arlington County with the county board, where we're going to have to redraw precinct boundary lines in order to make sure that each precinct is fully contained in a single district, House, and Senate. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I would say right now everything's the same for this election. That's the main takeaway. But there will be, in kind of December, January, February, there will be some new precinct lines potentially being drawn and some new districts being assigned to voters. So it's just something to put on your radar in the next 6 months.
My understanding of the process is if either the House or the Senate doesn't approve whatever the redistricting commission puts forward, it would get sent to the Virginia Supreme Court.
Yes, that's correct.
Do we have any idea what the timeline will be if it gets kicked that way?
No, this has never been done before, so it's really a wait and see from our perspective, which is not uncommon in any redistricting
Right.
process down at the local level. It really is just a wait and see.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think that's almost certainly going to be what ends up happening. So
Yeah,
we'll see
yeah.
what that results in.
yeah, and all we can do down here is make sure we have the pieces in place. So the second we get those lines, we're working with the GIS department to identify the individuals that need to be put. So that's kind of what we're doing, is just getting everything ready for that process to take place.
We're fairly fortunate in Arlington because the county board and the school board don't have districts, so we don't have to do any redistricting for the local level, unlike Fairfax or Loudoun.
Yeah,
But we still have to deal with districts in the House and the Senate.
yeah. It's the re-precincting, making sure people are in the right precincts for their district.
I guess stay tuned on that. Any questions?
Just a comment, if I recall correctly, there's a second time around that the commission has, goes after the House and Senate vote, goes back to the commission. And the assembly again, they turn it down a second time.
Right.
Then it goes.
Okay,
forward.
got it.
So,
So it
yeah.
might be a while.
That's where, like I said, but the timelines are
Yeah.
pretty quick for them, though. It's not like they can let it take a year.
Right.
Yeah.
They really have to get it.
Yeah,
get the work done.
they've got very set, definite times and things.
Yeah.
That's something they would, I think, want to have done. This legislation should be done with their part before the regular session.
And do you know, is the legislature have to approve whatever the Supreme Court does? I suppose they wouldn't, right? So whatever the Supreme Court comes out with is.
It's final.
Yeah.
But I assume that could be sued. We could sue that over that too, right?
Well, anything
Probably
can
the
be
federal
sued.
court.
Yeah, anything can be sued at any time, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, if it happens, I'm well aware. I mean, yeah, and it past precedent. I mean, redistricting maps like litigated over constantly.
Yeah.
I think the House maps weren't settled in court until 2016.
Yes, you are correct.
So 6 years after they
Yes.
did that. So.
And there was litigation back in 81 that led to the elections.
Right.
Yeah. So it could be a bumpy ride ahead.
Right.
At this point, everything's the same for this election.
Yes.
So,
So stay tuned. We'll see what happens.
yeah.
All right. Next item is Gretchen gives us an update on a meeting with the election integrity organization.
Yeah, so last week I met with Frank and a panel of voters from Arlington who are working with an election integrity organization, nonpartisan election integrity organization, and they are meeting with general registrars across Virginia and administering an interview with them. So we'll see what comes of their work. So that's,
Yes, thank you.
yeah,
Appreciate your taking time to meet with them and
yeah,
addressing any issues they raised.
yeah. It was,
And I
That
was,
was excellent interview.
yeah,
We all appreciate it.
yeah, it was, yeah, so.
and I don't know if this is a question for Gretchen or Frank, but what is the ultimate work product? The reports.
Right, so again, this organization, we got the survey from them, we offered to administer it in Arlington with the registrar. But they are compiling the results from registrars across the state. They put together an interim report, which is kind of, looking at concerns that registrars have, things like that, challenges, other things. And so an initial draft has come out, but we haven't submitted our.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was fast.
Yeah, ours haven't. They have been doing this for quite some time.
Yeah.
So that's available publicly. I glanced over it and it looked like there was some pretty interesting findings.
What was the name of the organization again?
I think it's Virginians for Election Transparency.
Okay.
Well,
Changed names, the new organization
Yeah.
that's still growing. So.
we appreciate the interest. The three of us, certainly, 5 of us, are committed to transparency, and the more that we can help people to understand the process, the better. Because you all can in turn share your experience with others in the community who may have interests and concerns, and there can be a better understanding of how we do things. And themselves any ideas for improvements.
Yeah, I agree. Voter education, I think, is key for anyone and for people understanding what we do. And I know we're working on actually a video project to kind of walk through the election process and how it works and getting to here. And yeah, I think, a lot of what happened last year was just based off of confusion, lack of understanding how the process works. And we obviously have an interest in making that clear. And so people have full faith and trust in our election results. All right. Well, for all of you who are interested in ranked choice voting, we want to give you a quick update on a work session we're going to have with the county board next month to kind of walk through what that might look like.
Yeah, so the county board has invited us to a work session on October 5th. I believe it's in the afternoon with their regularly scheduled work sessions. And they will be asking us questions about ranked choice voting to make sure they have all the questions answered prior to making a decision whether to move forward and adopt ranked choice voting for Arlington. And then during that work session, we'll also be talking a little bit about the re-precincting process since they're involved in kind of the redrawing of precinct lines during redistricting. So those are the two topics we hope to tackle. So mark your calendars now for the afternoon of October 5th. More information to come.
And just to kind of clarify what our role would be in this and what the county board's role is, we would implement whatever the county board decides to do. And the county board under the state statute has the authority to adopt ranked choice voting for county board races, specifically primaries and or general elections. So that's what the county board is considering. Should they decide to adopt an ordinance to have ranked choice voting for either primary and or the general here, we would just, so we don't make the decision whether ranked choice voting will happen or not. The county board will in the nearest future. Questions?
Just to mention that I'm out of town at least that morning. I can drive back. We'll be otherwise I'll watch it online.
Yeah, I believe it's in the afternoon, and like any other county board meeting, they'll send out a public notice ahead of time.
Yeah.
You can watch it online, all of that. So stay tuned on that one as well.
And I can tell you that those members of the General Assembly in Richmond who supported the ranked choice voting are watching what we're doing. And a good example is Delegate Hudson, who patroned the bill that applied all around the state.
Yeah.
And I gave her a brief update, and she was already, that was nice to learn, she was already very, very familiar and tracking what we're doing.
Yes, Delegate Hudson is very much, she really wants to, when ranked choice voting is implemented in Virginia, we want to make sure that it's implemented successfully. So whether Charlottesville goes first or Arlington goes first, it is coming to Virginia. And we just want to make sure we're in the right footing for it.
I promised her I would give this report in part because she mentioned you.
Yeah.
But that's good.
Yeah.
Be a model.
My understanding is the state regulations, the Department of Election regulations for ranked choice voting, the comment period ended in August.
Yes.
So they're going through the process, probably finalizing the regulations this fall.
Yeah. And we were just as our ranked choice voting mock election that we did in August was successful. We were able to successfully run an election using the draft regulations proposed by the State Board of Elections. So for our purposes, they are adequate to conduct an election. Obviously, there are things we don't like about them, but the goal of running a ranked choice voting election was.
And thank you for everyone who showed up to that mock election. I think we received a lot of helpful feedback as well, right?
Yeah. So it's more than 60 members of the public participated, and were able to vote and then offer feedback on the ballot design and things like that. And we did go through 9 rounds before we had our ultimate winner of our favorite farmers market here in Arlington.
What was it? I forget.
Probably courthouse. I have the results on my desk. But,
I really think that the voter education piece around this
Yeah.
is going to be really
It's
important because it can be confusing
Right.
to explain, well, how come I voted one, how come my candidate didn't win?
Yeah.
So that's going to be very, very important.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we've had some experience in Arlington on the Democratic Committee with ranked choice voting, so I think a lot of people will be familiar with how it works. But it's going to be completely different if it's official, for official elections. And I know the way the ballot would be laid out, I have some concerns about,
Yeah.
which you'd have instructions for non-ranked choice voting elections, and then you'd have instructions on a separate page for the ranked choice election, and then separate instructions for the final election, which is like constitutional questions and
Yeah.
referendums. So it's a lot of going back and forth and asking voters to track how they're supposed to be voting. So maybe they will, provide some more clarity in how to do that final regulation. But if any
Yeah.
place can handle it, we are.
Thanks for your photo call.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, I guess that's all we had, and we'd be happy to open up to public comment at this point.
Just a reminder that if you're online, if you're on the phone, you have to press *6 to chat. If you're online, you can use the chat window or you can raise your hand, but you'll need to unmute yourself. Again, on the phone, you press *6. And if you're online, you would need to press the mic button. It should have a slash there right now. If you click on that, it will open it up for yourself. And I think Charles has his hand up. Yep.
I'd just remind you that given that this is perhaps our last opportunity to screw up a split precinct vote, I would beg the parties to not design their sample ballots so it looks like you're telling voters that they can vote for both delegates in 47 and 49 like you did last time.
So thank you for the comment, Charlie.
Marcia stepped off.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else? Comments? All right. Well, I think that's it for public comments. And at this point, we're going to go into closed session to talk about security plans
There's a
related.
motion on the next.
Yeah, to discuss security plans relating to ballots, voting equipment, and risk assessment. So we'll go into closed session, then we'll come back. We're just going to adjourn. So we will not have anything to discuss after we come out of closed session. So feel free to stick around, but when we come back, we'll be closing up the meeting. So with that, I will move that the Arlington Electoral Board go into closed session pursuant to State Code Section 2.2-3711A35 for the purpose of discussing issues relating to voting system security plans. Records being discussed maintain the security of ballots for voting and counting equipment and reveal the results of a risk assessment. Releasing such records in an open meeting would compromise security of an election. So I move that we go into closed session to discuss that topic.
Second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? None? All right, we will go into closed session.
Hand me the mouse, right?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.